What's up, y'all, and welcome into the Jack Vita Show. I am your host, as always, Jack Vita, back here with another episode. We're taping this Sunday evening, April 24th, 2025, just over a month left in the Major League Baseball season. Returning to the program, a staple of the Jack Vita Show. This is the seventh year consecutively that we've been doing this, Mario. Isn't that crazy?
That's amazing. I had no idea you were on that long.
Been doing this thing since 2018. Haven't gotten canceled yet. So
wow.
How about that?
Well, I'll see if I can help today.
Let's do it. Mario Lanza, he is the host of two of the most popular podcasts out there, Staff Picks, it's a movie podcast, and also Survivor Historians. I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about that later on. They're in their final season, believe it or not. But before he was writing about Survivor and entertainment and created the Funny 115, he was the Seattle sports guy. He was one of Bill Simmons' boys in the early internet, longtime Seattle Mariners fan, and getting more and more excited about baseball as we speak. Mario, welcome back.
Thank you, Jack. So excited to be here and doing one of my rare video podcasts. Our host here, Jack, talked me into doing a video podcast, which I don't normally do.
Mario he's like, I really want to talk baseball. I'll even do a video podcast. I'm like, all right, sweet, let's do it. That's great. Mm-hmm. So thank you for making an exception for us.
Only for you, Jack.
Well, let's dig into this Mariners season because that's probably where we're going to spend most of our time today. And I've just been perplexed by this team, if I'm being honest. And I think what's good here is that I believe that Mario spends more time focused on that American League, and I spend more time focused on the National League. So Mario can kind of fill some holes here where I, admittedly, while I've been following this Mariners team, I don't really know what's been going on because they go out, they had a very active deadline. I really like some of those moves that they made, and they come out at the deadline and they go 10-1, and then since then they're 3-8, but they took this weekend series at home against the A's, so maybe they're turning a corner. What did I miss here, Mario? It's been, Jekyll and Hyde with this team.
Yeah, the thing that's interesting about this year in particular is that when you think the Mariners, you think bad offense, but really good pitching staff. And that was the thing. If you remember, I came on last year and I said I was so angry at this team. I'd given up because they have a historically good pitching staff with these whips that are like the greatest I've ever seen on a pitching staff, and they just couldn't win because their offense wasn't doing well. If you haven't been paying attention, the big thing this year has been their pitching staff has let them down. So their offense has actually been league average or as good, or like even above average at times this year. Cal Raleigh's having a great year, obviously. Julio's having a good year by his standards. They're actually doing better this year offensively, but the pitching has let them down. And that's why you said you're kind of perplexed by them, because everyone's perplexed by them. They're losing in different ways this year, which is interesting. They should be, and I'm just a Mariners fan, obviously I'm going to say this, but they should be in first by like 20 games. They're way better than the Astros this year. The Astros are just getting lucky. But the Mariners find a way never to run away with it, and I never get that.
Yeah, I think last year was really the opportunity where it felt like this window was opening up, and the Mariners had a real chance. Houston came out of the gate so slowly, and they got off to that terrible start, and the Mariners could have run away with the division. It was right there for them. And now it's a year later, the Astros, they lose Kyle Tucker, they lose Ryan Presley, they lose Alex Bregman, they lose Justin Verlander. There's very little left from this nucleus that won the AL or went to the ALCS 6 or 7 years in a row. That era of the team is over, but they're still in first place.
Yeah, always. It's crazy. I don't know what deal with the devil they made a couple of years ago, but it's like they're always in first. It doesn't matter who they're putting on the field; they will still be in first, and it's the weirdest thing.
Yeah, Jeremy Pena, he was having a great year. I don't know if he's cooled off, but he was really doing very well for them. I liked what they did with the Kyle Tucker trade, and I'm here in Chicago, and I'm following a lot of stuff from the Cubs end of things. So Kyle Tucker's going to leave as a free agent. You only have 1 year left on his contract. So you have that option of, like, we can go all in this year with Tucker. I was honestly a little surprised they didn't do that because they did not trade George Springer. They did not trade Bregman. They just let those guys walk. it was almost like they were anticipating this to be some kind of down year where they're going to start replenishing the pipeline.
Yeah.
They got Cam Smith in that trade, though, and I've heard from talking to some people, the Cubs farm system, they've got some guys who are top 100, but there are really only a couple guys that teams really, really wanted when it came to talking trades. And it was Matt Shaw and Cade Horton, who are now on the big league club, and they've been... Cade Horton's maybe their best pitcher right now in the second half of the season. Matt Shaw is their best position player in the second half of the season. And the Cubs said, we will not trade either of those guys. And the Astros said, all right, well, we want Cam Smith, otherwise there's no deal. We need Cam Smith. So they got Cam Smith, and he's a rookie, but he's shown a lot of upside. I thought that was a really good move to turn Kyle Tucker into Cam Smith and Isaac Paredes and Hayden Wesneski.
Yeah. It's there were some good deals. That's the thing. They're not a dumb team. They make good moves and stuff. It's just I don't understand it. I would just throw this out there from a Mariners perspective. Logan Gilbert, everyone thinks he's our big ace. He just, I think, recently threw his first quality start of the season since opening day. Yeah, so that's the thing. You expect Mariners are getting these ace turns every night, but they really haven't been. Gilbert was out half the year or not half the year, but for a while. George Kirby was out for a while. Still hasn't really got back to his full form yet. Luis Castillo has been up and down. It's not really the consistency we've seen from this team in the past. In fact, Brian Wu is the only one who's really been consistent all year. So, yeah, it's like you just wait for Houston to collapse. It's coming. And if Seattle, all their players got hot at the same time, I think they're clearly the class of the AL West. And unfortunately, I'm sure lots of Astros and Rangers fans would be mad at me for saying that, but I'm a cocky Mariners fan. I don't know what to say, but they should be in first. They're just a better team this year.
Well, and the other thing is the Astros have had nothing in their farm system for years now.
Yeah,
they've emptied out some of those guys just to, they traded Drew Gilbert, I believe, with someone that they dealt, and there are some other pieces to get Verlander back. They did that. They've done a couple of those moves. They traded for Yusei Kikuchi last year, if my memory serves me correctly, because it seems like he's on a different AL West team every single year.
Yeah.
But they don't, like, it seemed like with that trade they were anticipating regression, and yet here they are at the top of the division.
Yeah, and they were right to expect regression because they're going to expect it next year too. That's the thing. Their peak has passed. It's Seattle's peak right now. So that's why it's really infuriating as a Mariners fan that they just don't grab it and run with it, because it's all set up for them right now. Although I don't want to point a picture of doom and gloom here, but I always like to point out to Mariners fans who think this is like the worst thing ever and how the team pisses them off. We are in the golden era of Seattle baseball, and I don't think a lot of people realize that, and we have been for quite a while, that we've just pulled off 5 winning seasons in a row, which I should point out has never happened before. It's never come close to happening before. So, we have 5 winning years in a row. We're perennial contenders for the playoffs. We have one of the best farm systems in baseball. We have all these guys coming up who are all supposed to be big stars. So this is an amazing time to be a Mariners fan. And it would just be nice if they could cross that threshold just once, because as you pointed out, they did kind of go all in, or maybe not all in, but went in enough to get Naylor and Suarez. Everything's sitting right there for them. It was sitting there last year for them too, and they just haven't grabbed it. That's the infuriating part.
So Suarez obviously is someone that you're quite familiar with. He spent 22 and 23, right? It was 2 years that he was with the team.
That sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah. So he was there 22, 23. His numbers dipped a little bit from what they were in Cincinnati, but it sounded like he was just an awesome clubhouse guy. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like they made a mistake by letting him walk?
Jerry DiPoto has said they made a mistake. He's like, really went. He's all but blamed the owners. He said, we were operating at a time under that period under budget issues. So he's like, if we could take something back, that's the one I would take back. Although honestly, I'm not the biggest Suarez fan. I like Naylor more as a pickup just because we really needed some offense from first base.
Yeah.
And the guy we gave up at third base, Ben Williamson, was unbelievable at defense. I just loved his defense. And if you look at Suarez's numbers since coming back to Seattle, they're not that much better than what Williamson was doing. So I think Naylor was the big thing. But yeah, it was just a good sign of good faith for the Mariners, to the fans, that they went out and got Suarez just because that's what everybody wanted. So if nothing else, that really got the fans to come out and support the team here. On
the last episode, I went on a little tangent about how Josh Naylor is a hitter that I fear with runners on base.
Mhm.
And we clipped that. We put that on TikTok, Instagram. And when I say we, I say I. It's a one-man show here.
Mhm.
But thank you. But I got a comment that's like, I've never heard that said about Josh Naylor before. But do you feel that when he comes up and you've got guys on base, like he's one of those guys that you just feel confident in to get a hit, make contact?
Yeah, he is. To me, in my opinion, he's the one the Mariners needed. That we needed that consistent bat. And you look, I know batting average is such an old school stat. Nobody looks at it anymore. But Seattle's team is just up and down the lineup, a bunch of 230, 240 hitters with power. And you got Naylor, who's up in the 280s, 290s. That is a whole different challenge for pitchers because that guy actually makes contact. So to me, in my mind, he's the one the Mariners needed right in the middle. You needed Naylor just to keep pitchers honest.
Now, Mario, I know that you played fantasy baseball a long time ago, for a long time. You've been very active in sim baseball. I believe you were one of the early adopters of OPS and slug and on base, and a lot of the statistics that have become more popular than batting average now. My dad and I were having a little bit of a conversation because my view is let's take all these things and let's put them in a blender and let's use all of them. Let's not boil one statistic down and be like, okay, well, that guy's got a great OPS, therefore he's great, but his batting average isn't very good. I like to weigh all those things. So the question we came up with was, would you rather have a guy who goes 4 for 4 in a game and gets 4 base hits, or would you rather have a guy who goes 1 for 4 with a home run?
Yeah, I mean, that's the age-old question, and this has been going on ever since. I've been a big baseball stat junkie, I would have called myself an expert when I was a kid. Like, I probably knew more about baseball than any other 12-year-old or 13-year-old. I was playing all these stat games. But, yeah, it's the age-old question, because back in the day, a 240 hitter, they would hit 27 homers. That wasn't considered that great. But then you kind of do a modern eye at some of those people, like a Jack Clark. If you look, I'll just pull out a name out of my butt here. 1987 Jack Clark hit like 280 with 30 homers or something, which is good, but you wouldn't have considered that as good as like a 310 hitter with 15 homers. But Jack Clark walked so many times. That guy was a monster. And a guy like Ken Phelps, stuff like that, with these huge walk totals plus their power, even though they'd have a low average, they were very damaging. They're very productive. So I learned to appreciate hitters like that over the years. And I'll give a real hot take here. It ties into your question. I never loved Ichiro all that much as a Mariners fan. Because
perfect timing for this take, by the way.
I know, perfect timing. But it's amazing what he could do, but singles aren't that damaging, and he never walked. So you look at his overall stats, he made a lot of outs. If you look at his, that was the thing. In fantasy leagues, I always hated getting people like Ichiro, just because it's just singles and ground outs, and that's it. There's no power. So in my point of view, I like the maybe 1 for 4 with a home run. I think they're more damaging. They can really impact a game more. But I think we've headed a little too far in that direction, where now the goal is if they hit 220 with 40 homers, that's fine. And 220 still offends me as a fan, which I know it shouldn't.
Good.
But it hurts my eyes when I see these batting averages 220, 230, even 240. Like Cal Raleigh, if everyone's saying, oh, he's going to be the MVP this year, it still hurts my eyes to see that batting average. I'm too old school like that.
I think the 4 for 4 hitter is more valuable in today's game than it was 20 years ago.
Yeah,
because
now it is, because nobody can do that anymore.
Yeah, because they're all selling out for power. So, and I really do think a lot of this could change. I really do think we could swing back. It's a lot of it is, what are these kids being coached in high school?
Yeah.
What are they being coached in college? And then what are the hitting coaches doing at the major league level? And I think that I would, at this point in time, it's more valuable. Like a Luis Rise, I think, is a much more valuable player than he would have been 20 years ago because of how much the league has moved, as you mentioned.
Yeah, I was going to say, I can't tell you how many more wins the Mariners would have had the last 3 years if they had one guy that could put the ball in play with a guy on third, a runner on third and 1 out. All you need is a ground out, a fly out, anything, and they just can't do that. And that's not specific to Seattle. That's just how baseball is now.
League wide.
Yeah, and I don't want to get into the whole theory on, which one's a better way of more productive, but that's just how the game is now. It's a different game than it was in the 80s, and just people have to get that.
Well, the more contact you have, I think the game's more watchable. I think that it's more exciting, whether it's a hit or it's a running catch in, shortstop making a play in foul territory is running over to it. That's a more exciting product than walks and strikeouts.
Yeah, and it's like Survivor. Survivor, the better the players are playing, the less interesting it is to watch. It's just optimal Survivor player is boring. And it's kind of like that way in baseball too. And I was thinking back in the 80s when every player was like Willie McGee, 310, 9 to 10 homers. Those guys were fun to watch. And now maybe it's more optimal that the guys are hitting 230, but with a huge slugging percentage, but it's just less fun to watch. And I've definitely noticed that when I take my wife and son to we go to Angels games here in Southern California. And a lot of the times it's a pitcher's duel. It's like 3-2 with 2 home runs on either side. Each side strikes out 12, 13 times. And after the game, my wife was like, well, that was kind of boring. It was just all strikeouts. And I'm like, that's just what baseball is now, though.
And yet, your enthusiasm for baseball is returning. Why is that?
You'd have to know my timeline. So I became a Mariners fan in 82. I was 8 years old, a big Mariners fan, Oakland A's fan too. Ricky Henderson was my idol growing up. I knew every player, every team, every stat. I just watched everything, every highlight on SportsCenter. I had baseball sim leagues through my junior high and everything. I just loved everything. And then the 2 things that really got me was the strike in 1994. That one killed me. Like, I don't think people younger, the fans now, would understand how soul crushing that was, that the World Series was canceled because of the player's salary strike. So, and that just killed baseball for a long time. And then what eventually happened is I moved from Seattle. I moved from Seattle down to Southern California, and this is in 2000. And it was really hard to follow your favorite team if you didn't live locally back then, because it was hard to get games on the internet. You couldn't watch footage. So between about 2000 and 2010 or 12, I just vaguely followed the Mariners and knew how they were doing, but I couldn't really follow other teams, and I kind of lost interest, and we had kids. So those 2 things. And then since then, I've been following more and more, and I've been watching the evolution of baseball, how it's changed. I've been, with the internet now, you can obviously watch more clips, more footage, you can read more stuff. So, and of course, my kids grew up, now they're out of college. So I have more time just to go back into hobbies like baseball again. So I'm really getting into the overall picture of baseball again, like I used to be as a teenager.
So I know you're a big radio guy. You love listening to games on radio. How much are you watching these days? Like, how many times are you watching the game? Or is it when you get the visualization, is that from just kind of seeing the highlights and clips later?
Yeah, this is very specific to Seattle fans. I've talked about this before because we grew up with Dave Niehaus, who he could call a better game than just watching it. If you were watching it, it was less interesting than listening to him explain the game. So, and that was always the thing in the Kingdom as a kid. People would have their radios at the game. They'd be listening to the radio call at the game live in person. So I developed a preference to listening to baseball over watching it. So I love going to Angels games. That's where our closest stadium now, and I love watching in person. But almost always I'm listening to games. I'm listening, and then if I hear there was a great highlight, I'll want to watch it. I'll pull it up. But in general, I just like having baseball in the background, and I can do other stuff because I can multitask that way.
Yeah, it's a good way to do it, and there's some really good play-by-play guys out there. So it's Rick Riz, right? He's doing the...
Yeah, there's Aaron Goldsmith, Rick Riz, Gary Hill Jr. Rick Riz is the veteran, but they have these younger guys who are probably more prominent now. Rick Riz was Dave Niehaus' sidekick for many years, and he's actually been there longer than Niehaus now, which I think he never gets enough credit for that. He's actually been with the Mariners longer than Niehaus ever was.
Wow. And he and Dave Sims used to alternate between TV and radio, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And Riz is really good, but those new guys I really like, Gary Hill and Goldsmith. I think they're good.
So, little story time here. I saw Rick Riz at Mariners camp. Chatted with him for a little bit. Nice guy. I had met him before, but you mentioned George Kirby's injury, so I thought this is a story that the listeners would find interesting. So, this past spring, I'm doing freelance work for MLB.com. The way it works is you're filling in for different beat reporters. And I had Seattle, I guess it was just the one day. It wasn't 2 days, but it was one day. And I'm talking to Mario. I'm like, hey, what do you want to find out? Or maybe you got a good idea for a feature story, write about this or whatever. And I think I was like, okay, I'm going to probably write something on George Kirby. And I got there, and it was just madness because they called for a press conference before I even showed up, and I wasn't on any email chain to find out about that press conference. So I got there late, but I wasn't actually late. And I'm like, okay, now what's going on? They're like, oh, well, there's just a press conference with George Kirby. I'm like, okay, yeah, what happened? And they're like, he's going to be shut down. He's not pitching for a while. So I was there that day, and I broke that story, kind of. I shouldn't say I broke the story. I wrote the story and was assisted by Ryan Divish. He helped me out very much. So Ryan, if you're listening, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was thank you for jinxing our season, Jack. That was very nice of you. We needed George Kirby all year.
Everything I touch turns to crap, apparently.
Yeah. But you've made it 7 years. That's impressive. But yeah, I remember when that happened. Jack was covering the and I specifically said, go talk to George Kirby because I think Kirby is our ace. And then Kirby got hurt. And then, although I should point out, also in my defense, I called a couple years ago. I said, Brian Wu might be the best of all these Mariners pitchers. Because I remember there was some story on Baseball Savant or Pitching Savant, I don't know, one of those websites, that he was like, his pitch command and the shape of his pitches was like you could not improve what he had. They're like, this guy's going to be really solid in the majors. So I was correct about Wu being the best, but we really needed those other three pitchers to step it up this year. And it's not to say it won't happen. We still could, that I keep telling Jack every year that the Mariners team could win 110 games. If they all click at the same time, they have that kind of talent. They just haven't done it. So there's no saying that we couldn't get hot here at the end and just breeze right through the playoffs with that pitching staff all getting hot at the same time.
Well, and the other thing they have on their side is good prospects coming up. And you don't want to, I think it's such an interesting conversation when it comes to prospects, because you don't want to overvalue your prospects, but oftentimes it's good to have those prospects and give them chances to play, because if you strike gold with those prospects, nothing's more valuable, because you've got them under club control for 6 years. And look at what the Pirates have in Paul Skeens. Look at what the handful of teams have. But it's a combination of being willing to trade those guys at the right time and knowing when to hold on to those guys. I like Cole Young a lot, and Colt Emerson was someone that I saw at the Fall League last year, and I'm really excited for what he has the potential to be when he eventually makes his way up to the show. And that opens that window up longer too.
Yeah, absolutely. Colt Emerson, I've been watching highlights of him lately, and they're saying not only is his batting tool amazing, but his defense is amazing too. I keep seeing all these clips of him on defense. Like, I don't think J.P. Crawford's on the team again next year. I think Colt Emerson is coming up. They're going to let J.P. walk or trade him. So yeah, and Lazaro Montes, this big power hitter we got coming up. Again, it's such an exciting time for Mariners fans. I just want to get that across to anybody who's listening, that maybe they won't win the World Series this year. I don't know, but it's a fun time. And this is coming from a guy who's lived through many years of the Mariners just not being relevant to anything. They were never a big deal. Even during the Griffey, Edgar Martinez, Randy Johnson years, they only would have 2 winning years in a row and then a down year because their bullpen was so terrible. So the Mariners are going to be over 500 for quite a while. I mean, this is a really exciting time. I want to get that across to people. And again, it just comes down to, at the end of the day, if you think a World Series is the only optimal ending to a season. I don't always agree with that. I just like baseball being fun, and it's been fun being a Mariners fan the last couple of years, which has not always been the case.
Yeah, there's a lot of factors when you get into postseason, is who's hot and who's healthy. That's a lot of times what it comes down to, and constructing a team that can win in October, because there are teams that will find regular season success and will not find success in the postseason just because of the way they're constructed. But Colt Emerson, Mario, was someone that was the first game I went to in the Fall League last year, and I was sitting next to Jim Callis, and I'm just absorbing everything from Jim and finding out about players. And he was already on my radar, so I need Jim to tell me that. But he's a top 100 prospect. In that game, I believe he went 4 for 5 with 4 doubles, and they were all just like gappers, like off the wall, opposite field. Like, I can't visualize every single one, but when I try to, it's just an image of in the alley, in the power alley, right off the wall. And yeah, like you said, good defense, good speed. I like him a lot. I think he's going to be a star.
Yeah, I really thought he was gone at the trade deadline this year. And somehow DePoto got, Naylor and Suarez and or Ferguson, the lefty, without trading any of these guys. I thought Colt Emerson was the big guy who was gone for sure, but somehow he kept him. But yeah, that's the one thing I haven't seen him play in person like you have, but I'm really excited to see this guy. And I love Cole Young at second, who, he had like a 1 for 40 start to his career. He was way overmatched, and he's been one of our best players since then. He's only 22 years old. So yeah, Colt Emerson, Cole Young. I just think it's a fun time to be a Mariners fan. And now we got the guy we just drafted, Kate Anderson, who had no business going to Seattle. We had no business getting a pitcher that good with the guys we already have. So that's the thing. I just really hope Mariner fans are optimistic for the future and the present, despite the fact that we somehow can't cross that threshold, but we will one day.
Cole Young was also playing the fall league. They were teammates on that fall league team, and there were a lot of other talented players from other organizations that were on that roster as well. And Cole, I believe, only played like 2 or 3 games, and he tweaked his ankle, and he was out of there. And Colt did not stay there the entire time either. But that one game, I saw them both play. They both looked very good, and Cole obviously further along. We've gotten a chance to watch him at big league level. And based on, I'm not following him as closely as you are, it seems like he's been adjusting to major league pitching as the season's been going on, and he's been getting better.
Yeah, the announcers are always commenting that every one of his at-bats is competitive. And you can't say that about, Cal Raleigh or Julio. Like, they have good, gaudy power numbers, but there's days where they just look terrible. And that's the announcers are always saying. Cole Young never looks terrible. Every at-bat's good. He's really good on these borderline pitches. And again, he's only 22, and he's developing more power. He just hit the longest home run of the season for the Mariners, I think, a couple weeks ago, just this 470-foot bomb. So he's people should not overlook him either. And these aren't the only good prospects Seattle has. There's other guys, too, that are a notch below those two.
So Cal Raleigh is obviously the guy who's been talked about the most because he almost has 50 home runs.
Yeah.
With
he hit 2 today. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That got him up to 49, right? He wasn't 49 entering the day.
Yeah, he entered the day in the first inning, 1 short of the home run record. He hit a 2-run homer in the first to tie it, and then an inning later hit another 2-run homer to break it. So he only tied the record for about 13 minutes, and then he broke it.
Well, it certainly is shaping up for an interesting MVP race on the AL side of things between him and Aaron Judge, who's just also – Aaron Judge is having a phenomenal season. Mm-hmm. You're a Seattle guy, so you probably got a good Cal Raleigh for MVP case, don't you, Mario?
Well, okay, this is an interesting topic because I have very mixed feelings on this. Now, first off, I lived through the 90s, and I remember there was one year when it was Ivan Rodriguez, and I forget who he was against. And the other guy had way better stats, but Ivan Rodriguez still hit 330, and he was a catcher, had a lot of home runs, and he won MVP pretty easily because he was catcher. Because catcher is naturally the most valuable position on the field. So I've lived through that before. So we're going to get another one of this year where, is that your Ivan Rodriguez there?
Yeah, it is. Yep.
All right.
Texas Rangers. Yep.
His MVP bobblehead, yeah. So there's been a precedent before where the catcher with worse stats wins MVP. Now we come up to this year where Cal clearly has less interesting stats than Aaron Judge, but I can just tell you from watching Mariner games this year, I've never felt like Cal is like a runaway MVP, even of our own team. Because he's so streaky. Like, he'll go on streaks where he's unbelievable, and then he just looks hopeless for a while. And my thing with MVP has always been, you should know who the MVP is just by looking at him. I just know that's the MVP. And I've been watching Cal on a day-in, day-out basis, and it pains me to say this as a Mariner fan, but I can't be a homer and say he automatically deserves MVP. So I think it's going to be very close, and I wouldn't even be that disappointed if he didn't win it, just because there's been a lot of times this year where I just feel like he has not been the MVP even of our own team. It's just he's too streaky. There's way too many strikeouts. And again, low batting averages still hurt my eyes when I look at them and all these massive strikeouts. So again, if he wins, it would be justified. If he loses, I could see it would also be justified. I can just say he's not a slam dunk MVP just looking at him. And even as a Seattle fan, I have to say that.
So when you say that it feels like he's not the MVP of the team, are you speaking broadly about the whole season or in individual games? And who is it then?
Well, I would say when I'm watching the Mariners and I know it's a clutch situation, I want Randy Arozarena up there. He's the guy that I always think is the most dangerous in the clutch. So when he comes up in the ninth, he's the guy I always feel is kind of our scariest hitter. It generally is not Cal Raleigh. So that's what I mean by that. And it's not saying Cal's had a bad year. I'm just saying on a day in and day out basis, Randy is the one that would scare me the most as an opposing pitcher.
And I love the numbers for a catcher too. I mean, I don't feel strongly about this, but what Judge is doing is just so phenomenal. I mean, he's got 440 on base. Like, that's a Barry Bonds number.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's gaudy and old school. Yeah.
Yeah. 40 home runs with a 440 on base, 326 average. I think he's got let's see, He's leading the AL in average. He is not going to lead it in home runs. He could catch up on RBI, though. So he's not going to get the Triple Crown, but he's in all those categories. And I know people might not care about all those categories the way they used to, but I like to look at those. I like RBI, by the way.
I do too. I mean, these are old school stats, but they still exist to tell you what has been happening in games. So yeah, they're situational, but they still did happen.
Yeah.
Although I should point out two things. I have put Cal Raleigh on my sim teams. I have all these Seattle Mariner all-time great teams. I put him in a sim against other teams. He strikes out almost every damn at bat. It's so infuriating to play with him on that team. And there will be home runs, but there's so many strikeouts. Aaron Judge will just tear up stat leagues just with that stat line. But on the flip side, I also want to point out catcher is a defense first position. I have always argued that any offense they get is just a bonus. And he's put together a great year defensively. He's a great leader. He's going to go down one day like Johnny Bench, a beloved statesman of the game, beloved Seattle Mariner. That'll be his legacy one day. So I absolutely would be thrilled if he wins MVP because he does bring so much to the table. I just don't think his offensive stats are as good as the home runs make them look.
It's kind of funny how we've reached a point where we just don't really care about team performance anymore with MVP because it used to be like, oh, well, if the Mariners win the AL West, Cal Raleigh's got to win it, especially if the Yankees are like the last wild card team in, although back then we didn't have all these wild card spots. And now we've really just kind of thrown out a lot of the team performance stuff because we recognize that you're only going to be able to impact your team so much. You're 1 out of 9 guys. But I still do think that there should be at least a little bit from that. Not to say that your team has to finish in first place in order for you to win the MVP, but if we're looking at the definition of most valuable player, that's definitely something I take into account.
Yeah, I agree with that. And again, this has come up over the years. I always remember 1987, Andre Dawson won it in last place for the Cubs. And a lot of people thought Ozzie Smith should have won it because he was on the Cardinals and his defense. But yeah, so it's cyclical in history. These arguments will come up every couple years. But I do agree that it's not as performance-based for the team as it used to be. But you can also make the argument there's not one runaway best team in the AL this year anyway. So it is wide open. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's what makes this really interesting I think both leagues are wide open right now. Mm-hmm. However, I think the National League is significantly better than the AL.
Yeah. I wouldn't disagree with that. I just saw Seattle get steamrolled by the Phillies. I saw them get steamrolled by the Brewers earlier. We are not as good as the Phillies or the Brewers. But as they say, you don't need to be the best team. You just need to be the hottest team at the right time at the end. So we would not beat the Phillies and the Brewers over an extended season. But in a 7-game series, you can absolutely beat them if you have a hot pitching staff.
Is there one team on this AL side that you think would be like the team that you're like, I don't want to play them, or I think they're the clear best team, or how do you assess these teams on the AL side?
I can only speak of it from Seattle's point of view, just from what I see with them when Seattle plays them. We always do poorly against the Yankees. We're just intimidated by the Yankees. I hate playing the Yankees. Even though I don't know they're like that great a team this year, they just always have our number. But there's other teams like the A's. We always play badly against the A's. I don't get it. They're just scrappy against us. But then Seattle does tend to do well against other teams like the Rangers. And I don't remember this year being against the Blue Jays, but in the past we've played the Blue Jays pretty tough. So yeah, there's not really one team. But just knowing my Mariners history, I just hate when the Yankees end our season. That is just the worst. And that's happened so many times in our history. It's not fun.
Yeah, I think it's wide open. There isn't one. Honestly, the team that I think has the highest upside is the Mariners in this American League because, like you said, if it can all click at the right time, I think they're the best team if it all clicks and it all comes together at the right time. I love their lineup so much more this year than I have in years past. I feel like I expect that the pitching's eventually going to work itself out. I think these guys are too good to not pitch better than they have this season.
Yeah, I agree. And it has to happen. You just look at it. You look at that talent. If you had Brian Wu, Logan Gilbert, and George Kirby in a playoff series, in a 7-game series, and they're all on at the same time, there's no AL team that can match that. And I know earlier in the season you had Detroit, but they kind of collapsed, and Seattle actually ran over them pretty hard right before the All-Star break. So yeah, there's reason to be optimistic for if you're a Mariners fan, but there's also reason to feel like you're Charlie Brown trying to kick that football Lucy's holding.
Yeah.
Because we felt this before.
Well, now you've got the Padres coming into town, and more on the Padres in a second, but I'm looking at the schedule. The Vetter Cup. What is the Vetter Cup?
They just started that a couple years ago because they've been trying to make a Mariners-Padres rivalry happen. And that's all based with Eddie Vedder, Pearl Jam. He has got some connection to San Diego and Seattle, so now it's the Vetter Cup. But this is new. I haven't lived in Seattle since the late 90s, so I don't know the intricacies of this. All I know is this is a new thing they're trying to make happen.
The same Eddie Vedder that wrote a song about the Chicago Cubs and was at all the Cubs World Series games, wears a Cubs jersey, and is from Evanston, Illinois. How many? You don't get to claim that many teams.
Yeah, he was from the Chicago part of San Diego. I don't know. I'm the wrong person to ask. If I lived in Seattle and read all the newspapers, I could tell you this. I have no idea where this thing came from, this Eddie Vedder.
This is absurd. I'm sorry. I had no idea what this was, and I quickly Googled it right before you got on, and I'm just like, Eddie Vedder Cup. I thought it was like, it says Vedder Cup Game 4, Game 5, Game 6. I'm thinking, okay, so he's got the Seattle ties with Pearl Jam. So this is some kind of like Eddie Vedder designed cup that you can get as a collectible. That's what I thought this was.
Yeah, you get it at 7-Eleven. It's a Slurpee cup. Yes.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was. I thought it was a souvenir soda cup.
I honestly don't know. I'm a terrible Mariners fan because I don't consider this part of Mariners history. I don't even know what this new thing is.
I Googled it. Let's see. What I have
please tell me.
Here?
Inform me, Jack. I want to know.
The Vedder Cup is a new annual rivalry series in Major League Baseball, officially formalized in 2025 between the Seattle Mariners and the San Diego Padres, with the winner taking home a trophy designed by rock musician Eddie Vedder. The series also serves as a fundraiser for EB Research Partnership charity co-founded by Eddie Vedder. Okay, I'm not going to knock that. That's great. But it says the inspiration, this is just the AI overview on a quick Google search. The series is named after Eddie Vedder, frontman of Pearl Jam, who has deep roots in both San Diego, where he grew up, and Seattle, where he founded fame.
Okay. Yeah, the classic historical battle that started in 2025.
I'm like, you can only claim 2 teams. I'll give you a second team. You can claim 2 teams. One National League team, one American League team. Or honestly, at this point, does it even matter if it's AL or NL? But you could have your team that you grew up with. Like, your brother likes this, right? Like, I'm allowed to say this. He likes the Diamondbacks and the Mariners.
It is our family's shame. Yes, you cannot switch teams. He grew up in Seattle. He moved to Arizona, and he raised his kids as Diamondbacks fans, which you cannot do that. We were Mariners fans.
I'll allow that. You've got your place where, you adopt a team and then you got your home team. But for Eddie Vedder to be like on the field at the World Series with all his Cubs gear, and now I'm finding out that there's a Vedder Cup that doesn't involve the Chicago Cubs. Like, I don't know. We gotta look into investigating this.
Yeah, next year we're gonna start the Bill Murray Cup. It's Mariners and Giants. Bill Murray now supports both teams, San Francisco and Seattle.
Well, Bill Murray's actually a great example of somebody who claims a ton of teams. Like, he's one of those guys that you show up and it's like, oh, Bill Murray's drunk at the Final Four because Xavier's here, and his kid's best friend went to Xavier, and then he was at the Final Four for Illinois in 2005, and he's one of those guys that shows up drunk at all of these games and somehow has a random tie to the team.
I figured out this is the life pro tip for sports. This is the life hack. The really smart sports fans have figured this out. If you support every team, your team wins every year. I can't believe I never thought of that.
Is there some kind of way you can benefit as a celebrity to being a fan of all these teams?
Well, I mean, you're popular in every city, so sure. Unless someone actually notices and calls you out for being a hypocrite. Not that I do that. I love Bill Murray. He's one of my favorites. But yes, you get one team in each league. And in each sport, like I'm still a Seattle Sonics fan, even though they don't exist, and a Seahawks fan. But you can support other teams, I guess, but not every team.
Bill Murray grew up in my town of Wilmette. We went to different high schools because he went to the Catholic high school and I went to the public high school. But we played in Wilmette Park District Baseball. We both played in the same baseball league, and there's a small little field called Romer Park, and it's basically in someone's backyard, and it's this adorable, cute little field that you play on when you're a kid, and it's great. It's really well maintained, and they got a concession stand. It's the only field that's got a fence. It's a big deal when you're 10 years old and you get a game at Romer Park. And there was some interview somewhere where someone asked like highlights of your childhood, and he said playing at Romer Park. So that's the cool thing about Bill Murray. I can't be too hard on Bill Murray for all the teams that he likes to show up and support.
Yeah, that's an amazing connection the two of you have. It must have been cool all the times you must have had him on your show by now. Oh, you haven't? I'm sorry.
Oh, no. He got me there. How about, he was good on SNL 50. He brought it.
He was one of the few guys that didn't look kind of old and sad. He was actually still had the energy.
He had the energy, and he was just making fun of Colin Jost right to his face. And
yeah.
That's Bill Murray right there.
Yeah, I love Bill Murray. It's one of my all-time favorites. My only connection is I went to high school with John Olerud, or not with him, but a couple years after him. So, and even back then, when he was 14 years old, that was what he would tell people. That Ricky Henderson story never happened. Even back then, he knew it never happened.
Why don't you tell the story? Why don't you tell a story for those that don't know?
There's the story that Ricky Henderson played with John Olerud, and then later, many years later, they played on the team again, and Ricky said, "Oh, I used to play with a guy who had a helmet just like that, who wore the helmet in the field." And John Olerud would say, "Yeah, that was me, Ricky." Ricky Henderson has said that story, or John Olerud has said many times over the years that story has never happened, yet it gets repeated every time because people just love that Ricky sounds like an idiot in stories. And it really galls me because Ricky was my all-time favorite player. I hate that everyone just thinks he's stupid in stories. But anyway, I hate that story, and that's my John Olerud joke right there.
So the Padres and the Dodgers played what I think was the most significant game of the Major League Baseball season thus far. It is the 24th of August, and this was huge because the Dodgers won, which means that the teams are tied, but the Dodgers are really in the driver's seat because they own the tiebreaker. Padres had a chance to take a 2-game lead. So this was a huge game in that NL West race. My thought, just my first takeaway from this awesome series and this great rivalry is I really wish we had more games against divisional opponents. I know it's been 2 years ago, we changed the schedule, balanced schedule.
Yeah.
There's a balance, but they changed it for the balanced schedule, which I don't really think is balanced for the West Coast teams because it means they have to travel more than the teams in the Midwest and on the East Coast because there are more teams out west, or there are more teams out east than there are out west. So a team like your Mariners have more flight miles than anybody.
Yeah, I love playing the Phillies and the Mets this time of year. Those are some good flights.
Yeah, exactly. And so I don't really need to see the Padres play the Orioles. I want to see the Padres and the Dodgers play each other 2 more times in September. And now they're not going to meet again with this division on the line. And now it's kind of it's a little bit of a letdown in terms of just as a fan, because now the division's going to be decided of primarily on what we talk about strength of schedule, is how well are you going to beat up on the bad teams that you play. And that's what it's all going to come down to, rather than seeing these teams at war with each other.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Although, first off, I have to point, living in Southern California, as I do, I was surprised to learn there was a Padres team. I didn't know, with all the coverage the Dodgers get around here, I was surprised San Diego still has a team. I'd never heard of them. But yeah, no, I would love to see the Dodgers fall. I just don't like super teams, so I would enjoy the Padres beating them. Although Seattle plays the Padres starting tomorrow, so I hope they crash and burn this week, and then they can get hot after that. So that's my goal.
Gotta win that Vetter Cup, man.
It's very important. I cannot sleep at night knowing that Padres fans have the Vetter Cup. They're eating fish tacos out of a Vetter Cup. Yeah, sorry.
You want to talk about coverage? This was, like I said, this was the biggest series of the weekend by a mile. This was the most important game of the weekend, but it's not on Sunday Night Baseball. It's not on Fox because we got to have the Yankees and the Sox.
Oh, the Yankees. Thank God the Yankees are getting some coverage. I always worry that I don't know what they're doing at all times. Yes, this is a well-versed trope as a West Coast baseball fan that, yes, the Yankees and Red Sox must always be featured in everything.
I think this lends itself to an interesting conversation about rivalries because
Mhm.
I'm someone that I'm in the moment on rivalries because since these teams play each other less, you have less times where teams really hate each other.
Mhm.
And if you play each other 20 times a year or more than that, there's going to be, we've done a lot of things to take human emotion out of the game.
Mhm.
It's no longer acceptable to throw at guys. It's no longer instant replays really taking away a lot of the human emotion. Like you're not seeing Lou Piniella getting tossed the way he would if there's a replay review and then he gets it right. Like, so we're losing human emotion, and I think one of the ways we're also losing that is by not having rivalries. So I'm big on rivalries are present. I'm more interested in these two teams really don't like each other right now rather than, oh yeah, Green Bay and Chicago Bears are the two oldest NFL franchises. So that's a great rivalry. Well, Green Bay typically kicks the crap out of the Bears. Like it's not a rivalry.
Yeah.
So to me, the best rivalry right now is this Padres Dodgers thing because you can
Mhm.
tell the teams don't like each other. I don't think the managers like each other. And yeah, it's not historic. It's a newer thing. But I just don't think the players on the Yankees and Red Sox currently hate each other. I don't think they care about this as some big rivalry.
Yeah, it's in. I lived through the '90s, which was the great era of rivalries. So there were some great Mariners rivalries back in the day. I remember against the Yankees, like man, those guys just hated each other. Paul O'Neill and Randy Johnson and stuff. So yeah, I missed that. And admittedly, it's probably best that the players don't hate each other. It's more what's the right word? More noble product. But just from a fan, yeah, it's way more fun when you know these teams and players don't like each other because it really gets you invested in the game and you're just watching for every little incident of them just trying to take digs at each other, just trying to get the edge, just griping with each other. So yeah, I missed that. I really liked that in baseball back in the day.
Another way we could bring it back, longer playoff series. If the DS was a best of 7 rather than a best of 5. Because the more they play each other in
Yeah.
a playoff series, you see it. I don't really watch the NBA the way I used to, but NBA series, playoff games, when they're playing a best of 7, they get chippy. Hockey, they really get chippy. Baseball has some of that too. We saw a little bit of that with the Padres and the Dodgers last year. Unfortunately, that was only a best of 5. That would have been even better if it was best of 7.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's actually a really good point that the longer series definitely, yeah. Yeah, I didn't realize that was missing from baseball because I kind of focused my attention just on Seattle most of the time. But yeah, the more you mention that, the more I have noticed that as well from other stuff. It's just that era of just everyone just being emotional is. I mean, that's not even just baseball. That's just kind of the world in general that they've tried to take emotion out of most stuff, except politics. Plenty in politics.
We're probably going to have more of it because we'll have the, and I'm a proponent of it. I'm very, I wouldn't say excited, but I'm looking forward to being able to challenge balls and strikes. But that's going to remove some of that emotion even more because that was kind of like the last frontier in terms of arguing with the umpire. It's still, I mean, we're still going to have ejections and stuff like that, but that's obviously going to change things. I do think, though, as I've seen this challenge system played out in the fall league,
Mhm.
I really like it a lot. Have you gotten a chance to see the ABS stuff at all?
I actually have. Yeah, I've seen a couple games with it, and I really like it as well because you really get tired of seeing pitchers and hitters getting screwed on blatantly bad calls sometimes. So, yeah, I it's weird because it disrupts the flow of the game when they can challenge stuff, but I think it will make the game a little more based on skill and maybe not the whims of an umpire who can change one game with just one bad call in one inning.
Yeah, and I think that the way that we do the challenges is so much better than having just a full-time automatic robo-ump. Because
Yeah.
I think one of the things I've seen at the Fall League where they've been using it the last couple of years is you get a challenge, and if the ump's right or if the ump's wrong, it's embarrassing that they got it wrong. So imagine Angel Hernandez in Philly or in Boston, and he gets 20 wrong in a game, and he's just embarrassed the whole game. Like, he might just do us all a favor and quit right there.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
But on the flip side of that, I believe her name's Jen Powell, the first female ump who just made her debut, and she's a fill-in. She got sent back down. She's done a lot of fall league games. She's a very good umpire. I've seen her call games, and there was one game that I was at last year where there were probably 4, 5, maybe 6 challenges on the ball strike stuff. She got them all right. And then it's embarrassing for the player. Mm-hmm. It's embarrassing for the pitcher, the catcher, or the hitter who challenged it. By the 5th or 6th time she got it right, the fans were cheering for her. They were like, great job, this is awesome. So I think that's going to be definitely improve things, and it'll be good to have.
It will be good to have. I agree with everything you just said. But on the flip side, I'm always trying to think of devil's advocate. Seattle has a really good pitch framer in Cal Raleigh. Pitch framing will no longer be a skill. So.
Yeah, I don't know if I mind that so much now, because I think the pitch framing, I like watching good pitch framing. Mm-hmm. There's so much bad pitch framing now where the guy is just jerking his glove on a... Sometimes you see it where it's like the guy painted the corner, it's a great pitch, and he's jerking it to the middle of the strike zone. Yeah. And it gets called a ball. If he didn't try to pitch frame it, it would have probably been called a strike. So there's just honestly such bad pitch framing. And it obviously makes the job harder for the umpires. We're seeing velocity at all-time highs. This was not what guys were throwing 30 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
So it's hard to be an umpire. I think it'll be a good thing.
Yeah, and the velocity is only going to get higher. That's the thing. We're not going back to lower velocity. That just doesn't happen. So, yeah, I'm just speaking selfishly as a Mariner fan who we have a good pitch framer. So it will be bad for us. Although it would be better for some of our hitters. It's Seattle. This is one thing Seattle fans gripe about on Twitter all the time, how often Mariner hitters get screwed by bad umpire calls. So we'll see.
So lastly, on this Padres-Dodgers thing, I don't know how tapped in you are to this, but you do live in Southern California. Mm-hmm. Which of these teams do you think will win the NL West?
On paper, everyone expects the Dodgers to win. They're just the super team, and they get all the press, and no one ever cares about the Padres. Padres are like the redhead little stepchild. I like the Padres. I would like them to win, but historically, I know I don't get my way generally as a fan. You learn that as a Mariners fan. So I think the Padres are a better team, but I think the Dodgers will win just because of my bad luck as a fan.
Today, really, I thought the Padres were going to win today. And then I really think that I was probably, if they win today, I'm like probably 60% chance they win it. Now I'm probably back down to 50-50. This could really break either way. It's going to be fun to watch. I just wish they played each other again. Why can't they put them the final weekend of the regular season?
There's so many common sense changes you can make to baseball, and it's always surprising they don't do it. But yeah, that seems like no one would be against that.
Yeah.
I just say, again, as a Mariners fan, we play the Padres pretty well. We never beat the Dodgers. So that's, in my opinion, from what I've seen, the Dodgers always seem like a better team. They're just scary.
Well, they just dropped, or they split a 4-game series at Coors Field against one of the most pathetic baseball teams ever, the 2025 Colorado Rockies, who were eliminated from playoff contention today, by the way.
Oh, wow. Well, I'm surprised they lasted this long. Good for them. The good news is even though the Dodgers maybe lost to the Rockies, Ohtani did beat the spread on all 4 games, so at least he ended up Don't cut that, please.
We'll see. All right. Anything else baseball related?
Not really. Just want to point out to Seattle fans, we are in the golden era of Mariners baseball. Once again, just enjoy it. And it's not going to end anytime soon. Jerry Dipoto got a lot of crap for that. We try to win 54% of our games, but he's not wrong. And you can do that routinely. You're a perennial contender, and we have an amazing farm system coming up. So this is such a cool time to be a Mariners fan. I just hope people don't get wrapped up in anger if they blow it again this year, but one day it will be our time. I just don't know when.
All right. Well, Mario, this was great. We're going to talk a little bit of Survivor on my other YouTube channel. So if people are interested in that, go over to youtube.com/@JackVitaShow Entertainment. That's my other YouTube channel. This is right here on the sports channel. Mario, what are you up to? What are you working on? What can people come and find and expect from you? How can they follow along?
Yeah, my main thing these days is like you're not going to see me talk about baseball much. That's kind of a personal thing. I am a movie guy these days. I have a podcast called Staff Picks where I just talk about the movies that I think deserve more love or just I want to talk about. I have thoughts about them. I saw the movie Weapons today. That is such a fun movie. I want to talk about that with someone. I'm dying to talk about it. But in general, yeah, I have a podcast. It's staffpicks.podbean.com. And that's I just have people that like movies on, and we just discuss movies. I have a new episode coming out on The Lost Boys pretty soon. Then the early 90s version of Mice and Men. I got that. And then I have my daughter on for a documentary. I do documentaries too. There's Something Wrong with Aunt Diane, which is this true crime documentary that my daughter loves and you can find on YouTube. So yeah, Staff Picks is my baby these days. That's where you can find most of the stuff I do.
Is that her podcasting debut?
No, this will be her 4th or 5th episode already.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she's a regular now.
Yeah.
I just had my son on for Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. My son made his podcast debut for that one, defending that, saying that Episode 1 is one of the best Star Wars movies. That was his argument.
Okay. Not one of my favorites, but I'll have to listen to hear the argument for it. So he's Mario Lanza. You want did you throw your Twitter out there? Do you want to put the Twitter out?
Yeah, on Twitter I'm Mario J Lanza at Mario J Lanza. I'm not really active on social media as much these days as I used to be. I'm just kind of tired of social media. But yeah, you can catch me on Twitter at Mario J Lanza or email me at staffpickspodcast@gmail.com. Those are the best places to find me.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Mario. Always great to have you here. Guys, go and check out our other YouTube channel, Jack Vita Show Entertainment. We'll talk a little bit of Survivor. See you in a little bit.